My father, who abandoned me, is now coming back into my life, acting as if he just went out for a drink, trying to tell me exactly what I'm doing in life is wrong. I haven't seen this dude in years. Who is he? So you know what? I'm going for revenge. It's painful when our parents don't respect us, and my father's one of those parents who don't respect their children at all, be it their decisions or even their passions. I'm 20 female, had a painful experience with my father 2 years ago. Let me tell you about it. I grew up with my mom and my sisters who were 16 female, 24, and 25. Mother never liked to talk about dad. All she told us is that he went away and he's never coming back. But when I turned 18, she finally told me that dad had abandoned us days after Natalia was born. Mom was still at the hospital with the baby. I was just 4 years old, so I don't remember the day. Mom came back home 2 days after Dad left. She asked Avery where Dad had gone to, and my sister started crying after my mom's question. She told her that Dad said he was never coming back to our filthy house, and that he was going to find a better life for himself. If I knew, I would have never allowed him back in my life. Mom worked her back off just to get us all that we needed, and we're grateful for everything she did for us. We all went to the same school, and we never allowed anyone to mess with us. We would always protect each other because that's how Mom raised us to be. I met Moses. He's 22 now, but I met him when I was in 7th grade. We would always fight and never get along because he tried to bully Natalia. And then, when I got to 9th grade, I was forced to get along with him because we were in the same class, and we were often forced to do projects together. Little did I know that he was my soulmate. How funny, right? After 2 years of being classmates, we started getting along and later started dating. We would always laugh and just know how we used to fight every time we met. My sister and even Mom adored him so much because he was a people's person, and he took care of me and always made me happy. Mom never saw me cry, with the reasons being Moses. He was part of our family. He was also my best friend. We planned to go to college together and study environmental health. We loved treating plants. We would always go and help out neighbors with their gardens. It felt good giving back to the community, and at the same time, it was way for us just to spend time together. When I turned 18, Moses did not want to waste time, so he asked me to marry him. That would be after college, though. I had to ask Mom first, and she said that it was a wonderful idea. Moses said he wanted to show the world that I was already taken by the time we went to college. I'd never been happier in my life. My sisters were also happy for me as well. 2 years ago, a few months after I turned 18, my dad came back home from nowhere. Literally, popped out of nowhere. He looked like a tree fell on him. He really looked miserable, and he was not recognizable at all. That's probably because when he left, I was young and Mom never put his pictures up on the wall. She wanted to forget him because he caused her so much pain after he left. Can you believe he left without even giving Natalia a name? And he really had the audacity to come crawling back to us. We all never knew why he was back in our lives, but all he did was make my life a living hell. And he was happy doing it because he was not even considering how I was feeling about the choices he made for me. Even when I'd already made my choices with the guidance from my mom and older sisters, Avery was not happy at all to see Dad, and so she decided to move out of the house. I wanted to go with her, but Dad refused. He said Avery was old enough and she knew what she was doing. Dad came back with the rules, as if he was just out for a drink, and came back home to a mess. He never wanted us to ask him where he was. He would shut us up. He would always shout at us. I felt like I was back to the age of 3 because Dad talked to me like a child. Well, a few days after he came, Moses came to get me from home as we had a date. As he entered the house, Dad walked up to him. Who are you? Can I help you? Moses felt intimidated, but he was not going to back down without me. He answered, You must be Vanessa's uncle. I'm her Romeo, but my name's Mario. I did not know what to do at that point. Dad stood tall, and whatever he was thinking was not good at all. I walked up to them and greeted Moses as I've greeted him, and I twitched to warn him that he was not at all safe around Dad. Dad was angry and protective of me. He pulled Moses' tie and pushed him out of the house. I screamed as I tried to convince Dad to let him go, but I was left with no choice but to tell him that Moses was my fiancé. Dad froze for a while as he tried to process what I just said. He threw a punch in Moses' face, and he really wanted to destroy this man, but the neighbors came and stopped him from hitting Moses more. I was absolutely heartbroken, and I could not even look into his face. I ran into my room and cried like I've never cried before. How could Dad just come back to make my life hard? I was doing just fine without him, and I really don't appreciate his presence in my life. Anyways, a few days later, Dad came into my room to ask me about what I said about being engaged with Moses. I told him with the attitude this time, yes, it's true what I said about being engaged to Moses. We are engaged, and we'll get married as soon as we complete college. We'll live happily and love each other without abandoning each other because our love is real. My dad slapped me in the face and said, I was gone for a little while, and this is what you've turned into. You'll not marry that good-for-nothing boy. He has no manners, and that's not how I raised you. My father had no shame at all. He went too far to even think that I grew into the woman that I am because of him. Yeah. He left all of us, and he comes back to boss us around like he was there all our life. I walked out on him and went to stay with Avery for a few days. Imelda then came to get me from Avery's place because Dad wanted me back home. We went back home. We found the family having lunch and Mom asked us to join. I can tell she was terrified of Dad by herself. So we joined them, and as we ate, Dad asked what I was going to study. I told him how much I was passionate about nature and how much I always helped my neighbors with their gardens. I could see the disappointment on his face. I was not surprised because he's never felt good about anyone else other than himself. No one in this house will study such a silly thing. You'll either study human health or nothing. I want all my children to be doctors and nurses. Dad said loudly to everybody hearing. Mom was so terrified of him, she could not even recognize him. I stood up to ask him, You left us because you thought you were unworthy of you, and you come back from nowhere just to come and boss us around. We never missed you, or even think about you, dude. We were fine without you. Tell me, why'd you come back? If you're really living your best life, then why did you come back? I'm not going to allow you to ruin our lives like this. I hate you. More than I've ever hated anyone. You're a monster. I ran off to my room and left the whole family to the table. I was so hurt by my father's words and actions. Well, let's fast forward now, a month later. I finally learned the real truth behind Dad coming back. Dad was very sick. He only came back because he needed a heart transplant. So, he came back just so he could get a heart from one of his daughters. This man's so selfish. I could not believe that he came back home so he could kill one of us, just so he could live. You're probably wondering how I found out about Dad's sickness. He was having a minor heart attack on his way out. He had no idea I was watching, and so I decided to follow him to see where he was going. He went to a clinic and stood in front of it. He then went inside after looking around. I followed him inside the clinic, and I made sure to keep an invisible close eye on him. After he left, I snuck there to ask information about him, but they refused to tell me anything. He went to see the doctor and then left the clinic. I later went to talk to the doctor, and that's when the doctor told me that my dad's very sick. He needs a heart transplant. Dad had told the doctor that one of his daughters had agreed to give him her heart. It was a surprise for the doctor, but he thought that maybe we loved Dad so much that we would give up our heart. Well, he was very much mistaken. I would never want to die for a selfish punk like my father. I wish he could just leave us alone and go back to wherever he was before. I then went to let the family know that Dad was up to no good. He was sick, but he wanted to take away someone else's life just to save his own. In our country, somehow this heinous act is legal. I still don't have any idea as to where Dad has been the whole time. All I know is that he's left us because he wanted a better life for himself. And now that he's sick, he comes back groveling just to cause trouble for us so he can save his selfish self. The problem is that Mom feared him so much that she could not talk back to him like I did. Ever since he hit Moses, I hated him. He took the love of my life away from me, and he does not want me to study what I want to study and what I truly love. I had to change my whole life because he forced me to. And that was the moment I decided that I was not going to sit back and watch him turn our life into shambles. I had to think of a way to get rid of Dad, but I couldn't do it alone. So I asked help from my sisters. You might think I'm an evil person, but all I did was choose my family over the man that left us. I wanted to chase Dad out no matter what it cost. Mom was happy that we planned to chase him out, because Dad caused us pain when he left, and instead of him making up for the time he was gone, he was causing us more and more pain. Since Dad was already very sick, it was easier to chase a man like him away. We met with all my sisters, and I suggested my plan, but they said it was lame. You said he's sick. We can't chase him out of the house like that. He claims it's his house. The only way to chase him out of the house is to get him even more sick. That way, he'll have to go to the hospital for a long time. It'll give us time to clearly think of what to do next, Natalia said to both of us. Both Avery and Imelda agreed to her plan. I guess it was time for us to turn evil. Our plan was to stress him so bad that he would cause his heart condition to worsen. I must say that it was fun trying to stress him. I didn't feel guilt at all. I felt like a cub, trying to protect her pride because the mother's injured. I started taking Natalia clubbing. It was not because we wanted to go clubbing. It was just to stress the hell out of our dad. We would come back at 3 a.m. and we found Dad sitting in the sitting room, looking furious. Where the hell were you? I want both of you to come here now, Dad tried to say in his angry voice. So we passed by him like we did not hear him at all. We even giggled as we went into our room. He just kept knocking on the door, but we didn't open. We played music and later fell asleep. He felt so disrespected that he probably couldn't sleep all night. The following day, we woke up late and we did not do our chores. We went to join everyone for breakfast. Dad tried to bring up what happened the previous night, but I told him, why do you care where we go to? You're not the boss of us. By the way, we've been doing this even before you came. I could look in his eyes and tell he was burning with rage, and my younger sister was enjoying the drama I was putting on. Dad stood up, walked towards me, and tried to slap me, but as he raised his hand, Imelda stood and stopped his hand from reaching my face. Everyone was surprised. What the heck do you think you're doing? Don't even think that you can lay a hand on my sister in my presence, bellowed Imelda. You mess with her, and I'll break your hand without thinking twice. And don't think that because I'm a girl, or that you're my father, I'll not do it because I will, she said to Dad with a vein poking through her face. She pushed his hand away. We continued to have breakfast as Dad immediately left the table and hurried to his room. We all snuck behind him to see what he was doing. He was exploding in his room alone. We could see that it was working. He kept talking to himself and he was so angry. Mom had also moved out of their room and came to sleep in our room. We kept doing the same thing over and over and over. We'd always go out at night, come home with lots of friends to continue the party so that Dad did not receive any rest. Mom would always spend nights at Avery's place. What took Dad to the hospital was step 2 of our devious plan. As it caught him off guard, we got married with Moses. It was not a big wedding, and it was only prepared in 2 weeks. Moses' parents first rejected, but Moses insisted that he wanted to help me out. And besides, We're already going to get married and we are in love." They had no other choice but to agree. They helped us arrange the wedding. Dad only learned that I was getting married after we came home from church and had already gotten married. Everything then came to light. Everyone was celebrating at a local bar. It looked so beautiful, I cried. Dad could not handle the news, and well, he had a major heart attack. We took him to the hospital and they had to admit him and transfer him to a bigger hospital, something that specializes in hearts in the city. The doctors were able to stabilize him, but they're telling us he needs an urgent transplant. And he never came back until today. Honestly, I don't know if he died. All I wanted was to get rid of him, and I did. Like I said earlier, I'm not cruel, I just protect those I love, because they would do the same thing for me. We stick together, and well, we help each other out, and none of us ever saw that vile man again. Well, I'm not gonna lie to you guys, this might be actually the first story I've read where I had no empathy. I felt absolutely not sorry even 1 ounce of a percentage for this dad. He comes back into his life. First off, let me mention, I thought this story was straight up fake. I was like, nobody can give their heart away, that's totally illegal. Oh no, I was reading the comment sections, and actually in some Southeastern Asian countries, this happens all the time. They'll literally assassinate someone for their heart. Well guys, I think this story might actually have a chance at being real, and if it is, this is hands down the most toxic father we've ever had. And if I was OP, I would have gone no contact too, and let fate decide fate. Guys, let me know. Would you have done the same thing for this toxic father? Or would you have killed yourself to give up your heart? Yeah, right. I think I know what most of you will say, but just in case I'm wrong, drop your comments down below. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. I hope you enjoyed that wild story. And just know, it's cool to be kind. I'll catch you guys later. Oh yeah, and go ahead and go follow my Instagram channel. It really helps support me. Thank you.